This is a place where we were told to lie to people, where we were told to get the sale no matter how it affected the customer.
Yeah.
I would get in arguments all the time with my manager about I wouldn't want to sign people up if I thought it was going to inconvenience their life. It feels wrong because it is. It feels sketchy. It feels like a pyramid scheme because it is sketchy, because it is something you don't want to be involved in. It feels cultish because like you're probably joining a cult.
Meghan, in your message to us, you talked about being a top leader for Cydcor, and you mentioned that you had started watching the docuseries The Vow, which is about this sex cult. And I found it really interesting that you said it was early on in your tenure with Cydcor that you went to your boss and pretty much said, there are a lot of similarities between this sex cult docuseries and this place I'm working, minus the sex, although we'll get into that later. So I'm really curious, what drove you to even make that comparison?
Yeah, so it's been a while. I'm trying to like remember exactly, but I basically was watching the documentary, and in the early episodes, they talk about the different like workshops. So the different methods that they would use for these workshops and the different I don't know, like kind of like pyramid that they would use reminded me a lot of what we were learning. Like repeating the same like the phrases and stuff like that they would use. So we had different like terms that we would use in the office, like hitting bell and like always not making excuses, being positive instead of like you could never speak of any negativities. That was like the worst thing you could do. And you have to always be positive, especially in front of new people, and like moving up the ranks, things like that really stuck out to me. And I was like, this looks a lot like what we're doing, going into the office, practicing these like same scripts over and over again until we like get it right. It just felt very, very similar.
You were there for 9 months. You were there for top leader. You were doing door to door for Verizon. What about that door to door campaign sticks out to you to this day?
What doesn't? I mean, me and Shelby talk about it all the time. We feel like we have like PTSD from doing it. It was like so we both started in September, right after the lockdown. So everything started to kind of open back up over the summer. We had the unemployment that was being offered was kind of cut in half. So I was just looking for a job. I was just like desperate to find a job. And so I found this job, and then neither of us knew that it was door to door when we started, which I'm sure is consistent throughout a lot of people's stories. So we didn't know it was door to door. The thing that stuck out to me the most was how many days we had to do it, how long we had to do it. The fact that we were doing it while COVID was still happening. People were yelling at us because they didn't want to interact with us because COVID. And then also just the winter and like how we would have to work no matter the weather. We would be freezing cold. I couldn't feel my feet. I couldn't feel my fingers. And I was told it was my fault because I wasn't prepared. I should have worn better socks. I should have invested my money in snow boots. I should be wearing gloves. So if I'm cold, that's my fault. Yeah, getting doors slammed in our face. It was just like a really dehumanizing experience.
Sure. Now, Shelby, I saw you were non-verbally agreeing with pretty much everything Meghan was saying there. Was that kind of your experience also?
Yeah, same thing with her. I worked at the county here making like no money, and I was just kind of fed up with it. So they actually reached out to me to like interview me. And then like a week after me and Meghan started, my mom actually passed away, and I missed 2 weeks of work. And my manager was like, oh yeah, like I'll give you $300 for these 2 weeks that you're missing. And like in the moment I was like, oh wow, that's so awesome. But like looking now, like my job I have now, I'm like, that is ridiculous that like I even thought that was like okay. But yeah, yeah, we just always talk about how we have like trauma and PTSD just from like the thought of like going door to door, like any neighborhood we drive through, we're like, oh my gosh, like if it's like 6 p.m., we'd be like, we'd still be knocking on doors. Like that's just insane. But yeah, it was very dehumanizing, I guess is the right word. Yeah.
Megan, you laid out a lot of details about how it seems like you and your boss were always kind of getting into it about a lot of different things. And it seems like from the beginning, you were just really suspicious about how this operated. So where did a lot of that conflict come from? And why do you think it was such a contentious relationship?
I think so. I am very interested in like true crime. I watch a lot of, I mean, we talked about The Vow. I watch a lot of documentaries on cults. I like to like read books. And from the beginning, it just felt really cult-like to me. I felt like I was almost being like indoctrinated. I felt like I was being told these things that were true, but I wasn't really being told why. I was being like, my words I felt like were being used against me. Like they'd be like, well, what are your goals? And I'd be like, oh, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And then that was turned back around on me like, well, you want to be a manager because you want this thing. And I felt like it was very clear, like signs of brainwashing. The fact that I felt like we would have to work, we would get to the office at 9 a.m. We would knock on doors till 7. And then afterwards we were expected to like go get drinks with our coworkers or go get drinks with the new guy. So I would be getting home at like 10 p.m. So I'd be working these insanely long hours, not able to see my friends. And I felt like it was a method of isolating. So a lot of it just stuck out to me as red flags. It felt like a cult. My friends to this day joke, like, of all people, you joined a cult.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, why were you there as long as you were?
Yeah, so this is how, like, the problem that you come into. So me and Shelby started the first week together. Like we started on the same day together. We instantly became really close. Like she mentioned, her mom passed away like really soon into us working together. My mom had passed when I was younger. We really bonded through that. And it was kind of a big method that they use is using your relationships with these people that you work with against you. Yeah. So if you quit or if you leave, you're letting down these people who you love, who you are spending all of your time with. So I think that it was a lot of that. I also think that there's a lot of manipulation. Like, you're doing such a great job. You're the best at what you do. There's such a like environment of competition. And when you're being told that you're the best, you're so good at this, you're a natural, like, it makes it harder to leave. I'm also somebody who is like a really hard worker. I came from the restaurant industry. So I was kind of used to working like 6 days a week, really long hours. I would pick up shifts for other people. So it kind of felt like it was normal to a certain degree. I think there was a lot that went into it. I don't know, Shelby, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and it goes back to them like kind of using our words against us. I remember like when we were getting close to, like, we were talking about leaving and we were like bringing it up to our boss kind of, he would, like Megan said, she wanted to move to San Diego one day, and he was like, well, if you leave, you're never going to have the opportunity to move to San Diego. Or like me, I came from like the county before. He was like, well, if you quit, you're just going to go back to the county making no money, when in reality, I was losing money working there. So it was just like definitely manipulation. And also we felt so bonded. We never really talked about it until like the last moment when we both like just had this epiphany. But it was like unspoken that like neither one of us wanted to leave each other there alone.
Mm-hmm. Was there ever any time when maybe one of you was struggling, or one of you was, and you actually use these words in your email, Megan, negged out the other person, where you were kind of, someone tried to pit the two of you against each other, even knowing how close you were?
Oh my God, yeah. It was like a huge tactic. So I think that a big problem was, like you mentioned before, I kind of had a contentious relationship with my manager. I am someone who is argumentative. I say how I feel. I call things out that I think are wrong. And that intimidated my boss. So he would go from like being like, you're going to be my next assistant manager, to then like punishing me and then being like, well, now it's going to be Shelby, and kind of like jump back and forth on who was going to be the next assistant manager.
Because I was very much the opposite of Meghan. I was just to myself. I never said anything. So he definitely took advantage of that as well.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like, there's so many examples of them pitting us against each other. I remember I had a meeting once with my manager's promoting manager, who was also his ex-girlfriend. And it's a fun point to throw in there. And she basically told me that like, if I wanted to get to where I wanted to get, or where they told me I wanted to get, essentially, I would have to like put aside my friendship with Shelby. That we were blocking each other from reaching our goals. And that just felt like really disgusting to me. And it was just like very clear what they were doing was trying to get us to see each other as competition, as opposed to like, we really built each other up. Like her wins were my wins. And I was told to feel like her wins were my losses.
I feel like it was the whole time we were there pretty much. Once they saw we got close, they were like, oh, we're going to use that against them. When like, all they talk about is like build relationships, and like your new people that you bring on, you need to be best friends with them. So like we were like, why are we being punished for having a strong relationship when this is what you guys preach from the beginning? Like it makes no sense.
A theme that I've noticed over these years is that anything that they can use against you, even if it's some type of positive thing, like your relationship with each other, they'll use against you to get their way, whatever it is, to get you to stay out an hour later, to prevent you from moving, whatever it is. They love to do that.
Yeah.
Now I'm very interested in language and word meaning and specific word choice to describe specific things. And when I read through your message again, Meghan, there were a few that jumped out at me. You used the words to describe this whole Cydcor experience: trauma, cruel, and harass. And those are some really strong words. Those paint a very negative picture. And I think, I would hope at least 9 out of 10 people, if confronted with, hey, you're going to work for a place that's going to make you feel harassed, they're going to treat you cruelly, and even after you leave, you're going to experience trauma from being there, even though it was just 9 months. I would hope at least 9 of those people would say, no, thank you. I'm not going to work for this place. So, and you can get as detailed as you like. This is your both of your conversation, your story. What went into you using those very explicit words to describe your experience?
Yeah, so it's kind of hard because I feel like I've done a lot of work to like move on past that whole experience, because it was like, I consider trauma. I'm trying to like remember exactly, because I have blocked a lot of it out. I feel like in terms of it being trauma, it was just like the exhaustion that we were going through. Like every single day, waking up at, like I said, 9 a.m., getting to the office. Whenever I was like questioning anything, I was punished for that. I would like lose opportunity. For instance, like I wasn't going to go to a team night one night and was like manipulated. I was told, that's fine, you don't have to go to the team night, but you're just not going to get opportunity. So I was basically told, like, if I don't go and drink with my coworkers, I'm going to not move forward in my goals. Mm-hmm. Things like that just felt like cruel to me. People would like come to me with like genuine issues as a leader and be like, I feel X, Y, and Z. And I was being told to basically lie to them and to like make them feel like it was their fault. Oh, well, like that, you're not making sales because you're not working the systems correctly. You're not making sales because you're negging out because of your negative attitude. And that felt really wrong to me. And it felt like cruel. Like I was blaming people for their own genuine, like realistic feelings that they were totally entitled to feel. And I would go to my manager about this and be like, these are valid feelings. And I was told that like, it didn't matter essentially. And I hated working in a place where that was the environment. In terms of harassment, our boss was just creepy. Like he said creepy things about other women, like to us, about different applicants. He would like call them hot or like, I don't know, Shelby, I don't know if you can remember specifics, but just say,
So
go ahead.
yeah, so I remember I would help look through the people who have applied and watch their videos of like their interview, and he would base it off of how they looked if they would get the job. Like he really didn't care about like any of their qualifications, even though there isn't any. He just based it on if they were good looking. And there were just many times where he would make weird comments to me and Megan and all the other girls in the office. And like, I have a boyfriend, and he knew that and was like trying to be really close to him, but then would still make those comments. And like, it was just very uncomfortable. And yeah, he would like talk about girls he was taking on dates and all this stuff. It was just really weird and uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was like alone in a car with him because it was when I was trying to leave, and he was like his last ditch effort to get me to stay. He like literally took me like 30 minutes away somewhere. And the whole time was just telling me about like all these girls he was going on Hinge dates with, and like how they had sex and things like that. And that's just not appropriate.
And he would talk about how he would cheat on his girlfriend at the time, all the time, like to us.
Yeah. But the issue is that like we would go to him and be like, where is HR? Like that's what I would ask. And like I feel weird complaining about that because at the time there's like this environment where we're all friends. You know what I mean? And like we're all supposed to be friends. Like, oh, the manager and me are like so tight. He can tell me all these personal things. He feels comfortable saying these things to me. Like that's supposed to be something that's good. But there was no HR. And I would ask him like, what do we do if we want to report something to HR? And he would say, I'm HR. And I was like, well, what if the complaint is about you? Like, that's not allowed. And he was like, then you go to his hiring manager, who again is his ex-girlfriend. And I'm like, that doesn't work. And that was a huge issue my entire, like throughout all 9 months of me working there. It was a constant debate, a constant battle. So basically me and Shelby went to him and told him that we wanted to leave.
Right.
It was like, we were like, we'll keep working for like until we find a job, essentially. Like, we'll help you out. We'll keep working. And so like the next day, Shelby went away. She was going on a camping trip, and it was like a team day. And so he announced all the teams. And I, of course, I knew this was going to happen. It's Meghan's going out with me. And I was like, great. So you want to spend this entire day trying to convince me not to leave. I knew that was what was happening. And like I said, he drove me like 40 minutes away. Because that was another thing. Like we would always have to go in the car with whoever we were team daying with, whether or not we knew them or not, whether or not it was their first day. But yeah, he would take me like 40 minutes away, spent the entire time telling me why it's such a great job. But like in the car was trying to like be buddy with me. Like, I think that's why he was telling me all these things, to like remind me that we're like friends. You know what I mean? To use that personal relationship to make me feel obligated to stay. So telling me personal things about him, I look at as like a manipulative way of like making me feel closer to him and making me feel some sort of like obligation. And then, yeah, it was a Saturday. So it was one of those days where we were supposed to only do like one sale and then we could go.
Right.
Made a sale like immediately. And I was like, okay, I want to go home. Like, I'm done. And he was like, basically forced me to stay out until 3, which is when we were supposed to end on Saturdays. And I was really upset because I was like, I don't want to be here. I did my job. And it was funny because in part of our like speech about wanting to leave, I talked about how we would come across these customers who would look at us and be like, you're so smart. Why are you doing this? Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And he like thought that was absolutely insane. Like, no one would say that. And like, I had a sale in front of him with a really nice man. I spent like 40 minutes talking to him because that's how I would make my sales. I would be very genuine with people. I would make sure they were actually getting a good deal. So I spent like 40 minutes with him. And at the end, he says, you're such a smart girl. What did you study in college? I tell him, and he's like, why are you here? Why are you doing this? And I literally just like looked at my manager and I was like, I don't know. Like, he won't let me leave. Yeah.
Wow. Now, you mentioned early on that you are the type of person, Meghan, that kind of tells it like it is and was willing to confront your boss. And you said that his promoting owner was actually a little nervous about your relationship, primarily just because he could get himself in trouble based on things that he's said and to you or about other people, and that she was just kind of on edge about that. Can you tell us a little bit about, I know you already said that they had dated, um who she kind of is, his promoting owner, and how much say so she had in his office, and like what you knew about how she ran things?
Yeah, honestly, Shelby, I feel like you might be able to answer this a little bit better than I could.
I mean, I didn't really have that much interaction with her. I feel like it was just she knew the kind of person that Meghan was, and she knew the kind of person that I was. And so she just tried everything she could, like we said before, to split us up and to kind of like make Meghan look like the bad guy just because she was like vocal about being sensible and like what was actually happening. Whereas I knew what was going on. I just didn't say anything. So they took that as like, oh, me being innocent, like they can brainwash me and just do whatever they want with me. So I feel like she always set up like meetings with me to like talk to me and like just try to brainwash me more. And she like stopped talking to you, Meghan, after a while, right?
Yeah. So basically she didn't have like a lot to do with the office, but so basically when our manager first started, it was just me, Shelby, one other guy who was great and left within like a month, bless his soul. Um, and a girl who had been with our manager from his previous office and our manager. So there was just 5 of us and 3 of us were brand new. Which is a red flag in itself.
I didn't know that at first. He
Yeah, we didn't
he
know
go to
that.
a different office to make it seem like there were more people there when there weren't.
Yeah. And so every morning we would do like Zoom meetings with her office. So that's kind of how she got like involved. And then as his office started to get bigger, we would have our own meetings. So like we wouldn't be like Zooming with them anymore. And then we would get meetings with her on Zoom, almost as like a reward or like a motivator, like, oh yeah, you'll have a meeting with her and it'll help you reach your goals. It'll help you figure out what you want to do, make a plan. We would just have these meetings where she would be like, at first she was like totally on my side. I earned a lot of money. Like I was a really good salesperson. So at the beginning it was on my side, on my side, on my side. Like you're doing great. You're hiring people, blah, 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 blah. Then I think over time she started to see that I did have a lot of opinions and I would call my manager out on them. And so, yeah, I just remember like a specific time where she basically said, like, you can't say this in front of Meghan. And my manager like told me that as, again, like kind of a manipulation tactic. Like, oh, she told me not to say this to you, but I trust you so much, so I'm going to. And then basically we had this experience, which we can get into, with a business trip to Philadelphia that was a disaster. And when we got back, I was just like so burnt out and so done. I was done. And my manager made me have a meeting with his promoting manager on Zoom. And I just started like crying immediately because I was so done. She starts telling me I have a victim mentality, that it's my fault because of my attitude, that maybe management isn't right for me. And that like basically just like her entire demeanor changed. She was done with me. And then that's when they really zeroed in on Shelby. And that's when they really zeroed in on Shelby's going to be the next assistant manager. Shelby is going to be, you got like leader of the year. Shelby's and it was all these things where it was just like, okay, you are not going to do it. You can't do it. We're going to focus all of our attention on manipulating her now. And like Jake, I think even admitted to me at one point that that was a tactic he was doing to try and motivate me. He did admit that to me, right?
Yeah, like that's the whole reason they pitted us against each other, was because he was like, I know that like if I make one of you mad at the other one, it'll motivate you. And we're like, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah. So yeah, she was just really, I think, like a toxic kind of like overlord. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's what it felt like.
Yeah, she's
and when
just
me
not
and
a good
Shelby were quitting, she actually like came to the office. She like flew in from her office, I think, and like messaged Shelby and was like, "Hey girl, I'm gonna be in Pittsburgh. Like we should hang out. Like let's meet up."
And I was like, LOL, I quit. Sorry. Like, you can't brainwash me anymore.
Yeah, but she basically like went into the office because we had friends who still worked there. And I think it was like a last ditch effort to, because it was really bad when we left. Like we were like the two number one people in the office.
Mhm.
And we left with another one of our coworkers who had been there for a while. So it was kind of like crisis mode for them, I think.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit of why you were, I mean, you've both laid out multiple reasons why anyone would want to leave a place like this, but you were there for a few months, and obviously you were being sold the opportunity and being punished for not conforming, which, most cults do. So what was the last straw? What made you both decide to leave? And take us kind of through that, like you said, that damage control, especially since supposedly one was better than the other, and then the other was better than the other, but now you're both leaving. So now it's kind of like, oh crap, what do we do?
Mhm.
So I would say the final straw for us was, Megan kind of mentioned it, our business trip that he sent us to Philadelphia for a week. It was us two and then one of the girls on Megan's team, because we were like the three closest. We had like no plan. Like, I guess like Megan was trying to help our boss find like a good hotel, like safe for us to stay. Like, she's from Philly, so she's like very familiar with it. And he just like wasn't having it. So on the way out there, we're driving. I had to drive. I had to pay for all the gas. I never got reimbursed for any of that. And like
And
we're at, what?
And the tolls, which are expensive to Philly.
Yeah. And I remember we were like an hour out, and we get like a message from the guy who we got our Airbnb through that like there was a party and like it's trashed and we have to go to like some other place now that he has down the road, which is like obviously a scam. And we walk into this place and it has no heat. We went there in February. It had one dirty like cot bed with like bugs all over it and stains. Like, the one heater they had didn't work. There like was barely a kitchen, obviously like no food or anything. So we were like, where do we go? Like, we can't stay here, it's freezing. We were like contemplating sleeping in my car, I think, at one point, but luckily we were like an hour-ish away from Megan's sister, and thankfully she let us stay at her house for a couple days while we figured out where else to go. And instead of getting us like a hotel, he got us an extended stay that just had stains all over the walls again, and like didn't like, it was a mess. But I think the worst part was where he had us pitching. He like told us that like there was this area in Philly that like Verizon really wanted worked. It hadn't been worked in years. So like, it was a great opportunity for us to make tons of money that week. And it was the worst neighborhood in Philadelphia. We were like, okay, we understand why no one was out there, because it was so dangerous. Every door we knocked on, everyone was like, why are you girls out here by yourselves? Like, you should not be out here. Like, this is super dangerous for girls like your age to be here. The first day we were supposed to go on like Monday, it snowed really bad and we couldn't leave. But the other
my sisters, and we got blamed for all of this. Like, the Airbnb situation got put on me. Like, that was my fault.
Yeah.
We snowed in my sisters, and our boss was so mad at us that we couldn't get to the city to go pitch. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, we were together and the other girl was by herself. I think we were all by ourselves trying to make our own money, just because we knew it was going to be kind of hard once we saw where we actually were. And me and Megan were close, so we just met up with each other. And the other girl called us and was like, this guy is following me. Like, I'm super uncomfortable. You guys need to get to me like as soon as possible. And so we're like running to find her. We call our boss and we tell him, because at this point, I think it was like 6 or maybe even close to 7 when we would usually be done. Yeah. And we were like, hey, like, she's being followed. Like, we're just really uncomfortable. Like, it's getting dark anyway. Like, we're just going to call it. I don't think any of us even got a sale that day. And he, instead of like asking if she was okay, like wondering if there's anything he can do for us, making sure we're safe, he says, okay, we'll just stay out and like extra mileage just so you guys can get a sale. Like, didn't care at all about our well-being or us being safe.
He didn't even tell us to. He was like, so you guys are going to extra mile it then, right? Like,
yeah. Like, it wasn't an option. He was like, okay, so you guys are doing this. We were like,
we both freaked out. Like, I don't know if I might even still have the text messages, but we
probably do.
Yeah, we freaked out.
Yeah. So that was that was, yeah, just like the icing on top of the cake. And like we obviously had to pay for every single meal that whole week. We did not get reimbursed for anything.
Well, we
And
didn't make any money either.
yeah,
We couldn't make sales, and that was, we found out later that that's like an area, it's honestly not the worst area of Philadelphia, because then he sent a group of boys to the same place the next week, and they go into the worst area of Philadelphia. We went to a bad area, but not the worst. But don't worry, he did send people to the worst. But yeah, we had to keep going out, even though like we were like, this is unsafe. We ran into a guy who was like, do you have eyes on you? And we were like, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, no one's watching us. And he was like, it is dark. I have daughters. Like, you need to go home right now. He was like, it's bad enough for you to be here during the daytime, but you cannot be here at night. And we still had to work. We made no money. We lost money, like Shelby said. The only reason we ever ended up getting money back on the Airbnb, by the way, is because I stayed on the phone with Airbnb for an entire day, like crying. I reached out to them on Twitter. I like had my friends retweet something to get their attention. It's the only reason he got any money back for that. And he never like really said thank you. It was still our fault that we were in this situation. It was just like, and not to mention the other girl that was with us on my team, it was like her second week.
Yeah, she was very new. So we were trying to, not nag out and make the best of it for her, because we didn't want to show her what we were actually feeling. But that, like I said, was the last straw. So we were like, we don't even care anymore. Like, this is ridiculous.
Shelby was crying on the side of the streets in Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh. I was like screaming, crying to him. I was like, how could you do this to us? Like, this is just, it's cruel. Like, it was the worst time of my life, honestly.
And I think that was like the thing that we were like, okay, it was kind of like a reality check. Like, we were both miserable, and I had kind of had in my head, like, I didn't want to be a manager. Like, he kept telling me I wanted to be a manager. I don't care about making 6 figures a year. They don't make 6 figures a year, but that's what they.
No, they don't.
No, but that's not what motivates me. That's never been what motivates me. And so he kept convincing me that I wanted to be this manager. I wanted to be this business owner. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, no, I don't. So like, that was always in the back of my head. But like I said, we had such a connection. So I was like, I want to get Shelby promoted. I want to stay until Shelby gets promoted. And I wasn't really telling her that. I wasn't telling him that. And I had gone back and forth so many times. I had told other people that I didn't want to stay there forever. I was just doing it until Shelby gets promoted, and then I'll find a new job. I needed the experience because I didn't have any experience besides bartending. So that's basically where that came from. And then one day me and Shelby were out together in the field. We were so miserable. Like, we were just exhausted. Like, we look at pictures and videos of us at this time, and like the life is just like gone from our face. Like, we're so tired.
Now we're in Shelby's car, driving to another street, because this territory is pretty spread out. Feeling good.
Feeling not so good.
Not so good.
We get back, we hadn't made a sale, and one of the guys on my team like came into the back room because it was a team night. So we were obviously back at the office drinking. And he came in the back room and said that he was quitting, that he couldn't do it anymore. And I honestly, like, I had no energy. I was like, good for you. Like, leave, get out of here.
This is us waiting at a door. They're home, but they're not coming. Merry Christmas.
And then I remember me and Shelby were both sitting on the ground in the kitchen. And I just like looked at her and I was like, I don't want to be a manager. And she was like the look of like relief that went over her face. And she was just like, neither do I. And we were like, it was like we were coming out of a spell.
Yeah. And it was like the first time we've ever like spoken about it to each other, which is still so crazy to me. Like, the whole time we were both under the impression like she was going to stay till I got promoted. I was going to stay till she got promoted. And like, yeah, it was crazy how it happened.
Yeah.
So touching on that, why do you think it took the both of you so long? Because you were both miserable. And obviously that wasn't the first time you were miserable.
Yeah.
And as close as you two are, why do you think it took you to the most horrifying breaking points, finally enduring that BS in Philadelphia, to sitting on the office floor and finally having that moment of clarity?
I think for me, it was like not wanting to let her down, because I feel like throughout the whole 9 months we were there, it was just constant, like, this is your fault. You're the reason why you're like this. Like, you're the reason why you're not successful. So it was just like another thing. Like, I'm the reason she's going to be so upset that I'm leaving her here, that I just never brought it up. I don't know if that was like the same for you, Meg.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think it wasn't like, of course, our relationship with each other was super intense, but we also had relationships with other people in the office. Like, those were our friends. And like, we were spending 6 days a week with these people. Like I said, like 12-hour days with them. They were who we were hanging out with on the weekend. We would drink with them after work. So this was really our social circle. And I think that that is a huge tactic that they use, is they isolate you and they overwork you. So you're tired and you don't have anyone like outside of the bubble to kind of hold you accountable. And I also think I think we're both really hard workers, and we both are people who, when we commit to something, we like to see it through. And yeah, I think a big part for me too was that I knew that I wanted to start a professional career, and I knew that I didn't want to do whatever this was, but I knew that the experience that I would gain from it would be really valuable. So I wanted to get at least a year's worth of experience. That's why I made it 9 months. But I couldn't obviously finish. But that was, I think, a big motivator for me too. I was like, I can at least stick this out. If I did it through the winter, I can do it through the summer and get a year under my belt.
Sure. Yeah. In our culture, having that year, that magic number of a year under your belt anywhere is like the good thing. It looks good on the resume, right? Like you said, for your professional career, if you were just there for a few months, that might raise some questions if you're applying for a professional career. So unfortunately, we're kind of slaves to our own minds and own perceptions at that point of what might future employers want to see, and they might not. They might not be that way. We might just be able to get away with leaving, but then we're kind of going against our own best interests by wanting to stay longer, even though we hate the job, we hate our lives, we hate everything about our existence at this point, but we feel like we have to keep going. Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned, Megan, your words were within that forced, because that's what it is, a forced social circle, that there's no one outside the bubble to hold you accountable. When you had to you were basically forced to go to your sister's house during that whole Philadelphia debacle, was there any type of critical narrative, any type of intervention, any type of questioning by her, or at any point during this, your experience too, Shelby, from any of your support system to say, what are you doing here?
Yeah. Not so much from my sister. My sister was kind of like going through something at the time that we were there, but that's besides the point. But I actually am really fortunate. And I think this was also something that made me and my manager butt heads a lot. I had a really, really close circle of friends. So I lived with 4 other girls who I was extremely close with. I had other friends that I was extremely close with that I would bring to team nights, because all of my time was spent with these people. So if one of my friends wanted to hang out with me, I'd be like, yep, come meet me and my coworkers, So I had people all the time in my ear, like, you need to quit, that you're in a cult, what are you doing? And I would just tell them, like, I know, you know what I mean? Because I did know. So it wasn't any like new information. I knew I had to quit. I knew that I was in a cult. I knew that I was being brainwashed. But I also felt like I was like gonna leave whenever I was ready, which I guess I eventually did. I wish it happened sooner, of course. But there was definitely people in my life that were very upset with me working there. My dad on the Philly trip was like, where is your HR? You need to quit right now. My dad was so mad because my dad grew up in Philadelphia. And when I sent him where we were pitching, he like wanted to like kill my boss. Not literally, but he was just like, you need to quit that job right now. yeah, I had people all around me the whole time saying, get out. I know Shelby did too.
Yeah. I live with my boyfriend, and I just remember like every night I would come home visibly exhausted and just like miserable, and he would try to talk to me and say like, why don't you try working, like where he was working at the time was sales, but it was like obviously way better than that. He was like, why don't you try applying here, like I know you would be really good, you would love it. And I just like wanted nothing to do with it, and I feel like it caused a lot of, you know, like issues in our relationship because I was never home, I was always exhausted, and he was trying to like break into me, like wake up, like just get out of there. And also, yeah, like my dad and my sister were just always on me about it. I obviously talked about it because I feel it literally was our life. And my dad was also very angry when we were in Philadelphia. Like I remember he was like screaming when I called him. And I found out after we quit, my sister had told me that my dad would come drive to wherever I was pitching and watch me, and I wouldn't know, just to make sure that I was safe because he was so worried about me. And that just like breaks my heart. So yeah, people definitely cared and were trying to like wake us up, but I wish it took us sooner, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you come back from Philadelphia. You have that kind of that moment that so many people who I've talked to over the past years have said it takes a moment for you to finally realize what I'm involved in and that I need to get out, regardless of what my goals are, regardless of how long I want to be there. We need to leave now. So what was happening then when you decided to tell your boss and then his promoting owner that, okay, we're both leaving, this is it?
Yeah, well, Shelby, were we okay? So me and Shelby were supposed, now it's coming back to me.
I don't remember that at all.
He like blacked it out.
Yes.
We were supposed to train. So basically we had like all of these new starts coming in. We had a lot. So there was like 10 new people starting like within like 2 weeks. We were supposed to train, and me and Shelby like couldn't get it together. Like we like could not bring ourselves to go to the field. And then eventually our manager just like sent the new people out, and we're just like, go meet up with so and so, and like give them an address to go meet up with. And me and Shelby were just in the office, like, I don't know, were we like crying? Who knows?
I think we were, because we just got to our breaking point of being exhausted, and we were like, we can't even get to the point of faking it to be able to train these people. Like it was to the point before that where we would just sit in my car all day. Like we lived in my car because we did not want to go door to door. We didn't want to do it, but like we didn't want to stay back at the office and hear our boss tell us how, you know, it's our fault that we don't want to do it. So yeah, I think we were there and we were just like, we just need to talk to him. Like we can't hold it in anymore. And yeah.
It was right after we had that moment in the kitchen too. We were like, we'll work for like 2 more weeks while we look for other jobs. Like we'll blah, 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 blah. Next day.
We're like, we have to talk.
We could not go another second. Yeah. And we just basically like broke everything down to him. We're like, we're not making, and everything was an argument. He had an answer for everything. We're not making money. Well, like how much money were you making as a server? How much money were you making at the county? You've made this amount of money before, so you can do it again. It's your attitude, that it's not what we want to do with our lives. And then we would be told, well, these are your goals. Like you want to have enough money to support yourself. You want to have enough money to move to California. How are you going to move to California without opening an office in California? What job's going to let you move to California? The job that I have now. But anyway, there's plenty of other options. What are you going to do? Go back to bartending? What kind of life is that? First of all, I loved bartending. I would happily go back to that over door-to-door sales. But just using our words against us for like 2 hours. And me and Shelby were just arguing back, like, this is not what we want.
And it was interesting because I always let Meghan talk first because she was the more vocal, logical one, and I was the more quiet, shut off one. And so she was telling him her reasons were like, we obviously had the same reasons, but he looked at me and he was like, okay, so like, you're good, like you're just staying. And I was like, no, like I also think I want to quit. And he was like shocked, because like I had never been vocal about it. And then so that's when he was like, oh my gosh, okay, like I need to get both of them to stay because like I know one's not going to stay if the other one leaves. And it was It was honestly amazing. Like that was like the best day.
Yeah, so we basically stayed and we had this like big argument with him for like 2 hours or like an hour, I don't know. And then he had to take an interview or something. So he was like, you guys take the day off. You guys clearly need a break, like all of a sudden. So willing to give us a break.
And then he went to lunch with us.
Yeah. And we went to lunch and then he met up with us and was like drank a beer and was like, I'm going to go hit the field. And we're like, I can do that because I'm a manager and like all this shit. And we're like, we don't care. Like, go. We don't want to be with you. Yeah. And then we both interviewed for other jobs and I like went to him and I was like, hey, I got this opportunity doing sales with this company, which is amazing. I love the company that I work for now. And I was told like, oh, well, I thought you hated sales. That's why you wanted to be a manager, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I hate door-to-door sales. Yeah. Obviously, I would like to move out of sales eventually, but obviously, like, this is what my skill set is in. This is what I'm good at. So I'm going to go find another sales job where I have more opportunity. And it was just like shaming me for doing that. And yeah, then Shelby, when he offered you money.
Yeah, so we like went in one at a time. I don't know if you were first or if I was first, then whatever. And I went in, I was like, yeah, I accepted this new job. Like, this is my last day. Like, I'm done. And he was like, well, what are they offering you? And I was like I told him like a roundabout base. He was like, done. I can give that to you. I was like, you cannot give me a base salary of like 40 grand a year. Like, I'm barely making $300 a week. What do you mean? You don't even make 40 grand a year. Like, nice try. I know you think I'm stupid and that you can manipulate me, but I'm not. And like, I'm done here. Like, just the look in his eyes, like after me and Megan, he was just like, oh, like it's over.
And then the third person walked in after us and he was like, oh.
Meanwhile, this is the day that all of those new people started. So there were like 8 new hires with no one to train them. Well, I guess
he made me and Zach train them.
Well, you offered.
No, we didn't offer. He asked us and we felt guilty and said, okay.
True. I was like, absolutely not. I did an interview for him the next day because I felt bad.
Yeah, we had like 10 new starts. We also had like the the manager, like the representative for Verizon there, which I want to like clarify. I love Verizon. My hate is like not to Verizon at all. I thought that they were great. Mm-hmm. My hate is all to Cydcor. But we had the representative of him there and all the new people when this happened. We walked out and he was like, looks at me like so sheepishly and it's like, please don't do anything in front of someone, like whatever his name was. And so we had to be like, okay, and like awkwardly walk out after this guy is like, oh, Megan, I know your name. You make so many sales. And then I'm just like, bye, I'm out. It was really
also funny because I overheard him telling the people we were supposed to be training that we tested positive for COVID and that's why we left, not because we quit.
Yeah. I had one of Shelby's new guys reach out to me like 2 weeks after we quit and was like, Megan, I had no idea that you quit. Jake told us you had COVID. And like, then he quit.
So how did his promoting owner get involved?
So I think it was when we had that first conversation with him about how we were thinking of quitting and just like how we were unhappy. I think that's probably when he reached out to her and was like, because we were the top people. Like, we always joke about how like we made him kind of, because like before that his office wasn't really anything. So I think he reached out to her and was kind of like, they're thinking of quitting, like you need to come help me, like I don't know what else to do at this point. And then like Megan said the next day we were like, yeah, we're like done. And then that's when she texted me that she like got a flight here and was like trying to act like it was just to like meet everyone, because like we had never met her like in person, and like we knew it was because Jake told her that we were quitting and he was freaking out and she was trying to manipulate us to stay.
Mm-hmm. It stuns me a little bit. And at this point I shouldn't be surprised, but it still stuns me a little bit of how the 180, you know, they're so degrading to you and so manipulative. But then when you finally drop the bombshell, they gravel. It's just like they'll crawl on their hands and knees to get you to stay when they were just telling you how how poor of a mentality you have, and you have a victim mentality, and you do this, you do this, you do this. You're so awful at what you do, but we can't lose you. Which one is it? It's all smoke, mirrors, and manipulation and lies. If there's one thing I can say about Cydcor and the other branches, Smart Circle, Credico, they're exactly the same way, is that everything is built on lies, manipulation, and deceit. And unfortunately that's how they operate. Is their success ratio is based on how many people can they deceive into the opportunity, and what lies can they appear to make seem truthful to get you to stay. And it's so unfortunate. And we have an entire generation of individuals who don't know what a good working environment is like, and they get sucked into these horrible positions like you two did, these door-to-door positions, or standing in a Sam's Club positions, and they think, oh, this must be what work is, this must be what a real opportunity is, which is not for everybody, which is why everybody else I know is working at McDonald's and just making a boring hourly wage and not interested at all in growth and management. And I have to be the one that endures all of this garbage and staying on in a bug infested hotel with or an Airbnb with no heat. Oh, that's just normal. And I think that's one of the most heartbreaking things about hearing these stories, is that how much people are willing to accept when in a real position with a real HR would have never happened at all.
There's I'm sorry, I just remembered a couple of things that I wanted to mention to you.
Absolutely.
So basically, I know that we kind of mentioned before, but there was another office that we worked really closely with. So there was like a couple of different offices in Pittsburgh. And when we first started, I know Shelby mentioned that we basically started at their office because he didn't have any employees, and wanted to make it seem like it was like a real job. So we started there. We would go there for team nights some nights, things like that. So I became really close with one of the people that worked over there. And we would hang out all the time. And honestly, their manager would get annoyed that like they would come to our team night because they wanted to see me. They would get in trouble for like leaving early to come hang out with me. And they had shared with me that they made a lot less sales than our office did. Our office made a lot more like revenue wise. But we were making like around the same amount of money. It didn't really make sense. And they basically informed me that Verizon gives bonuses if you reach a certain amount of, if you sell a certain amount of TV, if you sell a certain amount of internet, you get like things that are called strats and you get bonuses, which is great. Another reason I liked Verizon. Our manager never told us about that and was keeping all of our bonuses. They were never given to us. And I approached him about it. I'm like, what is this? And basically freaked out at me and was just like, when you become a manager of your own office, you can decide what to do. It's my money. It's not your money. How do you think I pay for team nights? How do you think I pay for pizza? Which he never paid for it. Like we would pay for it. We would go and buy our new guys beer. We would go and buy our new like food for everyone. He never paid anything because he was not making 6 figures a year.
That's what I'm saying. He basically had to keep your bonuses because he's not making any money in Cydcor. Exactly. No one makes money in Cydcor.
Yeah, and he expects us, like the expectation, like she said, is for us to buy our new guys all this food. And like, we can't even buy ourselves food. Like we lived off of Wendy's 4 for $4s for 9 months. Like that's all we could afford.
I love Wendy's, but
yeah.
Hey, but like
we were just like sick, like unhealthy.
I could imagine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are going to be people who see this video and will take some of your quotes. For example, when you were talking about the sale you made on the road trip, Megan, you said, I did my job. I want to go home. You've talked about, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. There is a segment of people who follow these videos who will be the first to come out and say, well, these are just two negative people who are not cut out for this business. They should have never been hired. They had no business being there anyway. They're just from this complaining generation. They want everything handed to them. They don't want to do the hard work. Why is that not true?
I mean, it's just simply not true. Like, we are extremely hardworking people. We have both been through a lot worse than we went through at this place of work and made it through it and are better people for it. I got so angry when these people would tell me I have a victim mentality and that I don't know how to they would say, you don't know how to overcome adversity. My mom killed herself when I was 10. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, wow.
I don't sit there and tell me that I've never been through anything. And I know Shelby felt the same way. I was so sick of being told that I cannot get over hard things. And that's why I'm not good enough for this job. I can, and I have, and I will. This is not that. This is not that important. You can find jobs that treat you like a human being. You can find jobs that treat you with respect, that where you work 40 hours a week. I found this job because I was sick of being in a restaurant where I was working from 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. 6 days a week. You know what I mean? Like, I knew what I wanted, and I wanted a job with real hours and real boundaries. I wanted a work-life balance. This is a place where we were told to lie to people, where we were told to get the sale no matter how it affected the customer.
Yeah.
I would get in arguments all the time with my manager about I wouldn't want to sign people up if I thought it was going to inconvenience their life. And like being told that it's just putting profit before people is never okay. That unfortunately, that's the system that we live in.
Yeah.
And that is the system that Cydcor shoves down your throat. Capitalism, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, figure it out, get it done. If you're not making enough money, it's your fault. Anyone can be a millionaire, but it's your fault because you're not working hard enough. That's bullshit. Everybody can work equally as hard. It's just not possible for every single person who works for Cydcor to make 6 figures a year. It's mathematically not possible for that system to work. Obviously, I'm a hardworking person. Obviously, Shelby's a hardworking person. And obviously, we're willing to put in work when we are valued and when we are treated like you're not a human, like you're just like a method to make more money and to replicate versions of yourself. Why would you want to waste your time and energy doing that when you could put in working for someone that treats you with respect and has an HR department?
I mean, you pretty much said it all. Like the same thing with our moms. Like my mom died and we didn't even know for like 5 days. And like they talk about going through adversity and going through these hard times. Like he came from like a perfect little family. Like he doesn't know what adversity is. And to talk to especially me and Megan about it out of all people is just funny. But like at the end of the day, like we know who we are and like we know our worth and like we know how hard we can work and what we can do. And like the jobs that we both have now are just like night and day from what we have obviously done before. But yeah, like you can only say so much to prove it to people, but at the end of the day, as long as you know who you are, that's all that really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully those people will wake up soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who's watched these videos and listened to these experiences knows that the only way that these companies can function is through deception and manipulation. And you've already discussed at length the untenable situations that you were both dealing with. Is there anything that you can tell people? Like even I'm assuming once this goes out, you're going to share this with people, any red flags that you wish you could have spotted earlier, anything that people should be on the lookout for before the manipulation and the brainwashing starts so that they can get out?
I mean, I would definitely say even just like the company reaching out to you to interview. I feel like that was the first red flag. I didn't
Big red flag.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, I don't even have to reach out to them. They just found me. And now I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But yeah, that's definitely the first thing I would say.
I would say the interview itself. When you feel like you're being pitched to in an interview, when you feel like they're selling a job to you, I would maybe go the other way. if you get to the office, if you like get through the interview and you get there and everyone is like is all dressed up in these business suits. You see a bunch of young people in business suits because that's what they prey on, right? College students who just graduate. You see a bunch of young people in dressy clothes and they're all smiling and asking your name. And not saying that people can't be nice, but there's a general energy that you feel when you walk into one of these places that is alarming. And I guess just listen to your gut, because that's what we didn't do. We both saw the red flags, but we like went along with it anyway. So just listen to your gut and leave as soon as you can.
Yeah. And I'll also add, like, in the interview process, if they're not being super clear, like, dig more into that, like, get them to actually answer, because we were told to lie in interviews about how it wasn't door to door. And I just remember like feeling like I was like beating around the bush whenever I was interviewing people because I knew I couldn't say that. So like definitely look out for that kind of stuff too.
I admire both of you very much for coming forward and sharing as much as you did, especially about your personal lives, none of which I knew about before talking to you today. You both have obviously blocked out a lot of this from your memories. And I know that even to this day, I've been out for 8 years and I still wake up at night from dreams thinking I might have to go to the field the next day. So that trauma that you talked about, Meghan, is real. You know, and unless you're in this, you don't understand that. People just say, oh, it's just a job. No, it's not. This is something a lot different than a job. So you brought up a lot of memories that you would rather forget, admirably so. Why did you want to come forward and share all of this painful information?
I think for me, at least, like, I think it's really important to be open about things. You know what I mean? I think that, like, I understand why people want to protect things. There's things that I want to forget and things that I don't want to talk about, but there becomes like a power in talking about it.
Yeah.
I think that for so long while I was there, I was like screaming. It felt like all of these things that I felt like were wrong about it, and nobody was listening to me. And I leave and it just continues. And there's still people who don't know about it and they're getting sucked into these things. And I want to stop it. I want to stop those people from falling into what we fell into. I want to, like, I don't know. I just want to help other people to know that it feels wrong because it is. It feels sketchy. It feels like a pyramid scheme because it is sketchy, because it is something you don't want to be involved in. It feels cultish because like you're probably joining a cult. And I mean, like I said, I'm somebody who like is obsessed with learning about cults, obsessed with like learning about the psychology of how it works. I was watching a documentary about a cult as I was joining this one, and I saw the red flags and I still did it. So I guess I just want to come forward and because it's the right thing to do. I'm sick of these like powerful people, I guess. I don't even know how powerful they are, but I'm sick of these people just like meeting these people and having them have these horrible experiences and then leaving and then just moving on to the next person. It's sociopathic.
Yeah.
So I just want to stop it from happening to other people.
Yeah, same. I mean, I'm quite the opposite of Meghan. Like she knows about all this stuff kind of thing. I didn't know like any of this really existed. Like I just thought this was like another job when I first came into it, and then met Meghan and obviously learned otherwise. And I think I want to do it honestly just to help other people out there that might be like me, that are like closed-minded and don't know that this kind of stuff exists, so that they don't fall into it. And also just to kind of like really let that part of our life like go. I feel like they've still just had like such a hold on us for like no reason. It's just the trauma. Like I literally go to therapy about this. Like that's just kind of like the final thing to like let it go and be like, okay, we can like be done with this now.